Have you noticed that the more ordinary people are, the more they like to keep themselves busy, as if that can cover up the fact that they have no direction in life? You're not tired, you're exhausted. It's not that you have too much to do, it's that you're constantly doing things that have nothing to do with your future. You're always on the move, but you're not making any progress. You say you're working hard, but what you dare not admit is that your efforts lack strategy. You're anxious, panicked, and irritable because you have no idea what you're striving toward. You're not working, you're avoiding facing the fact that you haven't figured out your life yet. Wake up. Stop deceiving yourself that you're still young and have plenty of time. Time isn't something you possess, it's something you're burning through. And your current lifestyle is slowly burning away your future. Have you noticed that, from a certain point onward, you can no longer stand those friends who are always laughing and fooling around? They gather together to talk about gossip, not visions. They scroll through videos, not books. They plan where to go next week, but never think about what kind of person they want to become in 3 years. You start to feel impatient, not because you're aloof, but because you've woken up. You finally realize that the most terrifying poverty is not the lack of money, but the lack of desire to improve. And you've started to desire it. This is the signal. Your awakening isn't sudden, it's subtle. You've started to become allergic to meaningless noise, tired of aimless socializing, and impatient with relationships that don't progress. It's not that you've changed, it's that you've started to rediscover yourself. You begin to reject everything that wastes your life. Meaningless appointments, hollow gatherings, cheap entertainment all step aside. You no longer use social anxiety to mask your aversion to low-quality relationships. You simply refuse to waste your time on people and things that yield no results. You've come to understand that time is the true currency of the wealthy. The poor spend it, the average exchange it, but the truly wealthy invest it. They won't miss out on morning deep thinking for an unimportant invitation. They won't feed their attention to short videos for emotional stimulation. They use every hour to build the future, not to waste the present. And now, you're starting to do the same. You no longer pursue speed, you pursue stability. You no longer indulge in chaos. You begin to prefer peace. You no longer ask, how can I make money easily? But instead ask, how can I build my own system? This is a fundamental shift. It is the first step toward awakening your wealth consciousness. You begin to respect time, respect energy, and respect attention. You guard them like keys to the future. You say no more often not because you're being selfish, but because you're loyal to your own future. You're no longer tempted by cheap pleasures, nor manipulated by fleeting emotions. You've taken control of yourself, and thus begun to control your outcomes. When one can control their attention, they can control their life. This is a mental state few can attain. You're already at the threshold. You have become more perceptive. You can detect the flaws in others' words, identify inefficiencies in projects, and discern the true energy behind tones of voice. You begin to understand, a person's success is never about talent, but about clarity. It's not about asking, will this make money? But will this amplify my value? It's not about asking, will this fail? But will this make me stronger? You are no longer held hostage by the question of can this make money? But begin to build your own long-term assets. You start to focus on structure rather than excitement. On underlying logic rather than empty rhetoric. Because you finally understand that making money is just the result, while value is the starting point. And your most important task is to become a person who accumulates value. You no longer obsess over shortcuts to overnight fame, because you know that's a trap. You've seen too many people chasing trends, riding on traffic, and doing quick projects, only to switch tracks every year and achieve nothing in 3 years. You're no longer in a hurry. You start to plan your own pace. You know that wealth is compound interest, not a lottery. You're building systems, refining your understanding, and establishing a resource pool, rather than spending all day taking courses, taking shortcuts, and changing your rhetoric. You are playing a long-term game that others simply cannot comprehend. And this is the true mindset of the wealthy. You are redefining the concept of self-discipline. It is not about suppression, endurance, or self-motivation. It is about structure, boundaries, and order. True self-discipline is not about saying, I did it today, but rather, this is how I should act. It is about behavioral automation and reprogramming the underlying logic. Just as the wealthy never agonize over whether to exercise, because health is an integral part of their life structure. They don't hesitate, because hesitation itself is a mindset of the poor. And you are replacing this system. You have stopped relying on willpower to push through every time, and instead use systems, habits, and mechanisms to support your goals. This is sustainable growth. This is progress that doesn't reset to zero repeatedly. You have come to understand the fact: the wealthy never strive. They design. True masters do not rely on sheer effort, they rely on strategic planning. They know their strengths, they know the market's needs, and they know exactly when and where they should be. They do not rely on luck, they exchange knowledge for opportunities and exchange perspective for resources. They are not lucky, it is the chess game they play that ordinary people cannot comprehend. And you have already begun to write your opening moves. You no longer ask, how can I work harder? You ask, what is worth working hard for? This is proof that you are already on the right path. You are beginning to understand that living by your emotions is a lower form of life. In the past, you were always driven by your emotions. You did things when you were happy and procrastinated when you were unhappy. You gave up when you were tired today, set goals when you were excited tomorrow, and collapsed completely when your emotions dropped the day after tomorrow. You were like someone running a gambling ring, betting your entire life on your emotions. Yet you thought this was living authentically. But now you've woken up. You've seen through it. Those who can't control their emotions will always be someone else's appendage. They live passively, swayed by others' opinions, environmental changes, and their own mood swings. They don't steer the ship, they just drift. But you've started to take the helm. You've started training your emotions like you train your muscles. You no longer let anger ruin relationships, anxiety derail your actions, or loneliness push you back to old habits. You observe your emotions, name them, deconstruct them, and then reclaim your power. You're not pushed by anger to speak, by desire to consume, or by loneliness to surrender. Your control over emotions begins to form the moat around your life. Not suppression, but taming. Not denial, but mastery. This is the psychological framework of the strong. You have learned to say no to yourself, not to others' requests, but to your own weakness, laziness, and avoidance. You know that the hardest no to say in life is to the part of yourself that wants to slack off today. And you have done it. You start waking up at 6 a.m. every day, not because you're not tired, but because you know you must do uncomfortable things to deserve an extraordinary life. You begin daily reflections, not because you're perfect, but because you've accepted that those who don't reflect only repeat their failures. You start clarifying tasks, breaking down goals, and pacing yourself. You no longer rely on emotions to drive action, but on structure to execute. This isn't about motivation, it's about self-respect. You finally refuse to let that old version of yourself, the one with 3 days of enthusiasm and 5 minutes of passion, derail your direction. You no longer use "that's just who I am" as an excuse. You finally realize that personality isn't destiny. It's a program, and programs can be rewritten. You used to say you're introverted, that you have social anxiety, that you're afraid of failure. But now you know those were just excuses you never truly tried to overcome. You start forcing yourself to speak up, even if you stutter at first. You force yourself to finish your plan, even if the process is messy. You force yourself to initiate your first collaboration, even if no one responds. You force yourself to sit in an uncomfortable place for a while, because you finally understand. All your growth is hidden in the uncomfortable parts. And what you want is all outside the comfort zone. You've also finally understood what it means that action is the most valuable asset. This world isn't short on ideas, inspiration, or even ability. What it lacks are people who can turn goals from thoughts into reality. Too many people shout slogans every day but can't even execute for a single day. Too many people are addicted to learning, planning, and fantasizing, yet they never begin. You are not one of them. You no longer wait for the right mood to act. You no longer wait for the perfect timing to move. You no longer wait for others to acknowledge you first. You no longer wait for anything. You take action, you step up, you take on the challenge. Because you understand that plans have no value, only execution leaves a mark. You begin to build your personal system. You turn goals into structures and wishes into schedules. You set up periodic reviews, build a resource library, and eliminate ineffective inputs. You manage yourself like a business. This is the turning point where you shift from a wish-driven life to a system-driven life. You no longer rely on willpower to endure life but manage yourself through processes. You know it's boring, repetitive, and against human nature. But you also know, those who can go the distance aren't the ones who burn themselves out, but those who can sustain progress. You seek long-term success, not fleeting highs. You've become immune to the term passion. You're no longer swayed by inspirational platitudes, tempted by get-rich-quick schemes, or fooled by the notion that changing your fate requires just one decision. You know that changing your fate isn't about a single decision, but about 100 decisions, 1,000 perseverances, and 10,000 silent executions. You no longer envy those successful influencers. You begin to study their underlying models, resource integration, and long-term strategies. You no longer fantasize about shortcuts. What you seek now is a path. You are not here to be someone else's replica. You are here to be the creator of your own system. You have come to understand a hidden truth. The world does not prepare a stage for you. The world only makes way for those who bring their own light. You no longer wait. You no longer wait for a more suitable opportunity. You no longer wait for someone to notice you. You no longer wait for perfect preparation. You set off, using the current version of yourself. You have accepted the growth method of learning as you go. You begin to make mistakes while optimizing. You question yourself while moving forward. You feel anxious while holding on. You have no time to be a perfect beggar. You choose to be an imperfect doer. You are not brave. You are no longer afraid of failing. You know failure won't kill you, some costs will. You no longer fear making mistakes. You now only fear missing opportunities. You know what truly makes you regret is not the things you did that didn't turn out as expected, but the things you never did, leaving you with no opportunities at all. You don't want applause, you want results. And results belong only to those who take the field, not to those who stand on the sidelines clapping. You are now the one standing on the field. You begin to ask yourself a question. Will everything you're doing now still pay off 5 years from now? This isn't the meaningless question of does effort matter? It's the ultimate question of what are you really building? The document you spent all day writing, the short video you watched for half an hour, the irrelevant WeChat message you replied to, the WeChat post you shared that no one cares about. Can any of these add value to your future? You suddenly become vigilant. You start filtering information, streamlining choices, and rejecting random tasks. You no longer chase trends, no longer get excited at the sight of new trends, and no longer stare blankly at others' paths. You no longer think about how to get rich quickly. You think about how to live steadily. You begin to build assets instead of creating busyness. You begin to transition from a time slave to an asset holder. You realize that your greatest asset is not money, not resources, but whether you can consistently produce value and systematize it. A wealthy person may lose everything overnight in the next storm, but a systematic person can climb back from zero even after bankruptcy. You start writing, recording, stockpiling content, building a portfolio, developing methodologies, and refining cognitive models. You turn every experience into a module and every breakthrough into a replicable path. You are no longer just doing, you are building. You are not taking a shortcut. You are laying the groundwork for your own unique path. You suddenly realize that those freelancers, side hustle experts, and time management masters you once envied are not just lucky, they are highly structured. They commoditize themselves, systematize their processes, and then scale them up. They are not free. They are organized. They aren't impulsive. They're self-disciplined. They aren't tired. They've turned the tiring parts into a structure that generates compound returns. And you're doing the same thing now. You're no longer an executor, you're a designer. You design your own time, your own positioning, and your own skill tree. You start to operate your life as a system, not just react to a bunch of emotions. You have finally understood. True freedom is never about not having to work, but about having your own ability to generate income. You no longer rely on a salary. Instead, you can monetize your mind, experience, influence, insights, models, and communication skills. You are no longer just executing tasks. You are beginning to create value. You turn content into products, skills into services, ideas into products, and experiences into roadmaps. You are no longer just capable of doing work. You begin to possess replicable results. You are not working hard to make money. You are building an economy. You no longer pursue being seen. You understand that true value that can be monetized must first be recognized by yourself. You no longer wait for customers to come to you, wait for platforms to recommend you, or wait for luck to favor you. You proactively build channels, accumulate materials, and bring value to the table. You know, the market doesn't reward good people. It rewards clarity. You start to build a clear version of yourself. Who you are, what problems you can solve, who you can serve, what evidence there is of your abilities, and what labels define your style. You start to manage yourself like you would manage a company. You no longer blur, no longer go with the flow, no longer wait for positioning. You set your own anchor. You begin to distinguish between making money and building wealth as two separate things. Making money relies on skills, while building wealth relies on systems. Making money relies on physical and intellectual effort, while building wealth relies on mental effort and strategy. Making money is about income, while building wealth is about growth. You no longer just ask, how much money can I make? You also ask, does this have leverage? Does it have accumulative components? Does it have transferable advantages? You realize that true wealth doesn't come from doing more, but from repeatedly doing the right things. You start building your own time leverage, skill leverage, trust leverage, and work leverage. You no longer engage in one-time transactions. You start doing things that compound over time. You stop the inefficient way of living life as a to-do list and no longer get stuck in the illusion of what did I accomplish today. You start asking, which building block did I put in place today? Will I thank myself next year for what I did today? Does this move me one step closer to my ultimate goal? You start filtering your daily life with an asset mindset, rather than draining your attention with a task mindset. You know that not everything is worth doing. Only those things that have a structural impact on your future are worth investing your life into. You begin to value reflection. You no longer just shut down after finishing work, but start weekly reflections, monthly reviews, quarterly cognitive audits, and annual system audits. You assess yourself like a company compiling an annual report. Have my skills improved this year? Has my content matrix expanded? Have my core assets strengthened? Has my attention become more focused? You begin to manage yourself like a CEO. Evaluate your actions from a shareholder's perspective, and allocate your energy with an investor's rationality. You are no longer someone dragged along by time, but someone who drives the system forward. You finally understand that a true master is not judged by how much they do, but by whether each thing they do can generate income on its own and run on its own. What you are doing now is not just rushing headlong. It is building wheels, engines, and flyheels. You finally realize, true wealth is not found in the office, but within the system. Their wealth is not a single income stream, but a closed loop. And you are now building this closed loop. This is proof that you're already on the right path. You're beginning to realize that what truly changes your destiny isn't your goals, but your habits. You once thought you hadn't succeeded because you hadn't found your talent. Now you understand that's not the case. What destroys ordinary people isn't a lack of talent, but repeating the same flawed lifestyle every day. It's not that you can't do it. It's that you've been using a poor person's approach to pursue a wealthy person's dream. You want to turn your life around, yet you stay up late every night. You want to be efficient, yet you procrastinate every time. You want to break out of your circle, yet you're still obsessed with how others live in your social circle. You say you're anxious, but you're just too lazy to change. You say you don't have time, but you're just not planning. You say you're not in a good state of mind, but you're just lacking discipline. And now, you finally stopped deceiving yourself. You're starting to reconstruct every detail of your life. From how you wake up, to your daily diet, to your social choices, to every minute you spend in front of a screen. You've realized that life isn't a collection of random events, but a track built by inertia. And you've finally started to change that track. You now wait for energy, not for emotional comfort. You now exercise for long-term endurance, not for a number on the scale. You now read for cognitive growth, not to look like you're trying. Everything you do is shifting from a sense of proving yourself to a sense of building a system. You no longer live to please others. You now take responsibility only for the results. You've become quieter. It's not that you've become introverted. It's that you finally realize most people simply don't understand what you're building. They only care about whether you have money now, not what structure you're building. They only like to hear you complain, not hear you optimize methods. They only judge your current state, but can't understand that you're building a system that can be handed off in the future. They see you've changed and say you've become cold, hard to approach, and unsociable. But you know deep down that it's not coldness, it's focus. It's not hard to approach. It's that you no longer open the door for trivial matters. You begin to set boundaries for your energy. You no longer explain yourself to toxic people or situations, no longer indulge in others' emotional outbursts, and no longer sacrifice yourself for the sake of being easy to get along with. You say no with clarity and decisiveness. You begin to understand. Those who disrespect your time fundamentally lack respect for your future. Those who disregard your boundaries can never co-create value with you. You no longer use emotional intelligence to tolerate uncooperative people, nor do you endure low-quality collaborations for the sake of dignity. You focus all your energy on the 10% most critical actions, because you understand. Focus is the amplifier of wealth. You become like a volcano, calm on the outside, fiery on the inside. You no longer talk about your dreams everywhere. Instead, you silently build them through action. Every time you wake up early, every time you focus, every time you block out irrelevant desires, you are charging up for the future. You no longer seek motivation. You are the motivation. You don't rely on inspirational videos to get out of bed. You rely on the underlying self-respect of "I said it, so I'll do it." You no longer need others to supervise you, encourage you, or remind you. You have transformed from someone who relies on others to push you forward into someone who has their own engine. And this is the leap in identity. You begin to develop a new relationship with yourself. You no longer suppress yourself, nor do you indulge yourself. You no longer fantasize about a perfect version of yourself descending to save the present you. You understand, you cannot wait for that best version of yourself, because that version of yourself will only be born through the action of taking action today. You begin to trust the executing version of myself rather than the imagined version of myself. You know that only actions define who you are. And right now, you are rewriting your identity code with a series of high-quality actions. You no longer pursue inspiration, because you have entered the execution phase. You don't need to listen to something else to motivate yourself. You just need to keep going. You begin to understand. It's not about hearing more that makes you stronger, but whether you can persist in completing your plans after each exhausting effort. True strength doesn't lie in grand declarations made in the heat of emotion, but in those moments when you don't want to do it but still do it. On those nights when no one sees, no one likes, and no one responds, you still choose to complete, reflect, and iterate. Those moments form your true muscle. You no longer assess whether you're worth it, you build yourself with standards. You begin to ask, if I were a person worth 10 million, how would I approach this task? If I were someone earning $1 million a year, which task would I choose at this moment? You are not pretending. You are rehearsing. You use your future identity as a reference for decision-making, not your current emotions. This is the core philosophy of the strong. Act as the person you want to be before becoming that person. This is exactly what you are doing now. You finally understood that truly advanced people aren't just seeming successful, they're living cleanly. Clean time management, clean action chains, clean energy flow. You're now clearing out tasks that don't belong to you, rejecting others' expectations that don't belong to you, and dismantling those controlling narratives that say you should do this. You're not striving to gain approval. You're striving to restore authenticity. You finally live like yourself, and even more like the person you have always longed to be. This is the ironclad proof that you are already on the path. You are no longer the person lingering at the door of destiny. You have already walked through that door. You don't move quickly, but you don't stop. You don't always win, but you never retreat. You often question, but you never flee. You no longer live in the realm of possibility. You have entered the realm of necessity. You are not giving it a try. You are determined to succeed. You are not acting based on circumstances. You are executing according to plan. You are not waiting for opportunities. You are creating the conditions. You are no longer the one who prays for wealth. You are the one who attracts wealth by the rules. You have redefined your relationship with the world. You no longer beg like a poor person. You now grow inward, actively contribute, and build steadily. You no longer wander aimlessly, asking how to live. You now design your own path, build bridges, and light the lighthouse. You no longer expect someone to save you, because you are already the person you have been waiting for. You have become the answer, you have become the evidence, you have become the system itself. You will not collapse because of a brief darkness, because you know you no longer rely on light to survive. You rely on structure, rhythm, belief, and that phrase you have repeated to yourself 10,000 times but have never told anyone else. This time, I will turn the tables. You are not enduring. You are forging yourself. You are not bearing pressure. You are laying the foundation. You are not without results. You are in the silent period before the rebound of pressure. You know everything is brewing. And the universe has heard. You don't want things to be better now. You want to be invincible in the future, and you deserve it. You have cultivated a rare personality that does not rely on emotions, does not waste energy, does not beg, does not waver in standards, does not doubt oneself, and does not jump around. In this chaotic world, you have become one of the few who have direction, rhythm, anchor points, barriers, and bottom lines. That is why resources begin to gravitate toward you, opportunities begin to turn toward you, connections begin to gather around you, and potential begins to accumulate behind you. It's not luck, it's structural attraction. It's not coincidence, it's magnetic alignment. You've changed, and everything else will naturally follow. You won't be easily pleased anymore. Because you've seen what a truly strong personality structure looks like. You won't be easily shaken anymore, because you know you're holding up not just your emotions, but your entire destiny. You've begun to believe in a higher level faith, not I will definitely have money, but I am already the person who deserves to have everything. You no longer live by wishes. You live by anchoring. The way you walk is different, the sound of your voice is different, the quality of your actions is different. You carry an aura of I know who I am. And this aura is the true starting point of all wealth. You don't need to explain what you're doing, because you know you're doing something that millions dare not start. 9,000 give up halfway, 900 die from self-doubt, 90 veer off track, but you're the one who completes it. You're the only one left who keeps going. You're not a miracle, you're obsessed, you're not chosen. You're a relentless system executor. You no longer seek applause, because you've become the rhythm itself. You're not performing for anyone else, you're fulfilling your own vow. You finally understood. True wealth isn't built on slogans, but on a diary of 10,000 acts of moving forward even when it's uncomfortable. They repeat what seems like boring tasks every day, but they know those repetitions are the bricks of your future kingdom. The things you're doing now that no one sees will one day make the world look at you and know, this person is different. He deserves it, he is worthy. He should have had all this long ago. And you are now laying the foundation for that moment, so don't ask about the outcome. The outcome has already been written. What you need to do now is not to wait any longer, not to hesitate, but to take the next action. Immediately. Not tomorrow, not next week, not until the situation improves. Now, right now, take action. Write down the first thing you will accomplish when you wake up tomorrow. Delete all the apps on your phone that no longer align with your future identity. Delete that social relationship that only appears when you're vulnerable but has never helped you grow stronger. Set a clear goal, along with time thresholds and penalty mechanisms. It's not about ritual. It's about institutionalization. Don't wait anymore. Waiting isn't preparation, it's slow death. You've already awakened, so don't keep living a dreamlike life. If you're willing to let me wake you up like this every day, give it a like, and we'll see each other tomorrow morning.